or a Jeff Bezos, right? Where he's a creator, you know, he's not necessarily like, that's just not his like normal cup of tea, is like to be a leader.
Welcome to our very first podcast. We like to call it our Sun Clean podcast. My name is Joven, and we have here is John Erickson, our CEO. And right now, just a little interview today, just so you know, you can get to know John more, and you can get to know me more as well. So, John, tell me about yourself. Like, you know, what should we know about John Erickson?
Well, I would say I'm a business owner, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneur, and about to be newlywed next
Congrats,
year.
by the way.
Thanks. Brianna actually just came over to the business about 5-6 months ago. She was a full-time teacher, and she wanted to do something more with her life, and she always wanted to be a teacher, but she saw what we were doing over here at our company.
Yeah.
She wanted to be a part of it, you know. So she basically dropped out and came over here, and you know, she still got her degrees and everything, but she's over here now. So, but really, man, I'm a simple guy. I'm a very real person, I would say, and I love businesses. You know, I love business. I love building businesses. You know, I've been building this one now for a little while. I've had a couple before this one, and it's really cool to build something from the ground up and watch it grow and be a part of it and create an environment for people that, you know, they want to be here, you know, to change their lives. And that's really what I'm in the business of, right? Is being able to change people's lives, you know, help them, right?
Yeah, I seen it with my own eyes. How many people you change their lives too, like.
Yeah.
Like the whole boss day and everything, like you were impacted that was just a small section of people. You can't even imagine the whole company.
Yeah, man. I told myself a long time ago. I said, you know, I figured out our mission statement through my passion, and that was helping people. And our mission statement is pretty simple. It's taking ordinary people and making them extraordinary, right? Yeah. And you have to have a mission like that in a business like this, because we're in construction, right? And you don't wake up one day and say, you know, I'm going to be I guess a lot of people wake up and say, I'm going to be a contractor, right? Well, I'm a contractor, and I'm in a very specialized niche, and we also have a maintenance division where it's basically clean, right?
Yeah.
And you just don't wake up and do that, and so in order for you to stick with something like that, you have to have a bigger purpose than just, you know, doing construction and cleaning shit. You know, you gotta have that mission, like you want to help people, because when I see our company as a tool, as a gateway, as a vehicle, right? For people to come in, be a part of it, and really impact their lives, and gives them something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So since we're talking about your whole company and everything, like, you know, I just want to, like, you know, when did you start? Like, what's the main reason for it besides, you know, changing people's lives?
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think it's a really weird answer, because when I first got into businesses, I had my cell phone repair business.
Yeah.
I had my very first business was like selling action figures to my parents.
Hey,
when
how old were you?
I was young. I was probably like 9-10 years old, you know, and it was cool. You know, I was a kid. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was just, you know, I'd sell it back to them, make a couple bucks, and you know, I did the lemonade stands, you know. I always had an interest, I think, in doing business, transacting for cash, you know. I don't know, it was natural for me. It was something that I thought was normal. And so when I became of age, you know, I had a rough upbringing as far as the choices I made, right, when I was a kid. And got into trouble, hung out with the wrong people, you know, and when I got old enough to start making decisions for myself, I really got focused on being incredible in my career, right? And so I got my first sales job at a Verizon store, AT&T actually, and I found out I was great at sales, you know, and I did really, really good on the sales floor. I remember going in my first day with Goodwill clothes, and everybody else had nice suits, and I was walking in with Goodwill clothes. I had no money, right? And when I knew I was really good at sales, I knew I can trust myself to be able to transact and just be able to get people to buy into my products or services. So when I had my first idea to start a business, I felt confident that I can do it because I was already doing it for somebody else's business, right? And so many failures later, I had 3 different businesses before I made it to this one. We had it was called Bodyguards, Gadget Guard. It was basically a customized polyurethane military-grade film that you put on gadgets like phones and laptops and stuff. We installed them in the malls, right?
Ooh.
We were probably one of the first to do it back then when they came out. There's like InvisiShield and all these other ones, right? A lot of people know about it. And when that worked, but what was better was cell phone repair. And so we evolved into cell phone repair. And this was back when cell phone repair wasn't being done out in the industry. And the only people that were doing cell phone repair were like geek shops. You know, they had them at laptop repair stores where these guys were just super smart and they knew how to fix phones, right? So obviously we had a very successful business model because competition was down, Apple wasn't doing it, Staples wasn't doing it, nobody was doing it. And so business and entrepreneurship is a lot like riding the wave, right? What's hot, what's out, what's going on. Like if you can get in front of that wave, you can have a real good opportunity. And for me, I rode that wave on a couple businesses, the Bodyguards, and then I did it with the cell phone repair, then I opened up a hoverboard business, when hoverboards got big.
Dang, I didn't know about that.
Those little electric hoverboards, right? And it was all about like finding the hottest thing, right? And I was very entrepreneurial, I told you, from a young age. And so all these businesses were like very creative and like different, right? And what I learned from that was it's not about just jumping into something entrepreneurial that I cared about. I wanted to own a successful business,
Yeah.
Security and contribution, right, was important to me. And so what I realized is these entrepreneur journeys I was going on, I would do it, I would do well, but then I would lose money or I'd fail, and that's not what I got into business for. And so I had to get real with myself. And one day when I had lost the cell phone repair business, I had to sell the store, I had to sell all the material. It was humbling. It was very, very humbling because I lost it and I was with nothing again, and that was like the 3rd time around now, right? And I was like, okay, it's either go back to work or start a business, right? Well, I almost started another cell phone repair business, but I didn't have the money or the resources, and I think my ego was fragile. It was broken because I had lost the business, right?
Yeah, it could affect anyone.
Yeah. I couldn't get back up right away, right? So I really wanted to jump right back into another business, but I don't know, man. My mind was so like, man, how did this happen? Maybe business isn't for me. I don't know if I should do this again. And now where I am today, I realize that most people that have successful companies, like they've had a few failures, quite a few actually.
Yeah.
And so it led me on a path to go work for my buddy's company. He had a solar company, and I was knocking doors. So I started knocking doors, selling solar. I only lasted 3 months in that until I realized I wanted to go back into business for myself. Like, I licked my wounds for 3 months. I sold a couple deals for my buddy's company. I'm truly grateful for him to help me out. Shout out Jonathan Sunergy, helped me out, let me work for his business. And what I had realized when I worked for that company is that solar was going to be a big deal, and a lot of people were getting solar. And so I came up with a maintenance program.
Still to this day too, actually.
Yep. And cleaning solar panels was how we started SunClean, which is the first business, this business now that we're in today.
It makes sense why you called it SunClean.
SunClean.
Yeah.
That's how SunClean got created. And so you asked me, this was a very long answer for a simple question. Why'd you start SunClean? Well, it was out of creativity again, right? Just like all my other entrepreneur journeys. And we went and jumped into solar panel cleaning. I did that for about 1.5 to 2 years, just knocking doors every day, collecting $100, $200 a pop in residential neighborhoods. And at some point, I had realized that it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more, right? And because I was so creative as an entrepreneur, I limited myself to being a good business person, right? And so a lot of people out there might be struggling with this because you're a creative person, you're somebody that comes up with new ideas all the time, right? That's just what entrepreneurs are. And that's what I did is I was like, I was sold that solar panel cleaning was the way to go, right? Like, do nothing else, just do solar panel cleaning, like this is where it's at. It was actually the same thing that restricted me in my cell phone repair business, where I wasn't offering other things at that business. All I did was fix phones. I wouldn't offer extra screen protectors or add the bodyguards. I would get so romantic with just the Singularity product, right? And so solar cleaning became a Singularity focus, and I woke up one day and realized, like, there's more windows on people's houses and also commercial buildings, construction buildings. There's more of that in the world than there is solar panels. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so one day I wake up and I say, you know what, the solar panel thing's not doing it for me. I want to have a team. I want to have people. I want to have trucks. I want to have a massive team. I want to build a massive business. And you know, little did I know you could easily build a massive business with solar cleaning, but I just felt like it wasn't going fast enough for me, and I was being too entrepreneurial and too creative that I was getting romantic with that single product, right? And so what I did in the business is I started adding additional services. I was by myself, right? And those additional services would take my tickets up from $200 to about $1,000. And so I would sell them a solar cleaning, I would sell them a window cleaning, a gutter cleaning, and a pressure washing service. And so now I go from a $100, $200 ticket to like $1,500, and it was like, wow, you know, if I offer these other services, I can get higher tickets and I can get less customers, right?
Yeah.
That really sunk in me for some reason. Higher the ticket, bigger the ticket, the easier it is to scale my service business, because you can't scale your business off of $100, $200 jobs. And so one day, we moved out of my town where I was living back out to Anaheim, and I fell into a large construction project. It was a multifamily job, luxury apartments, right? And I just kind of fell into it. It was a construction cleanup for a large commercial business, and the rest was history, man. Like I literally got rid of the residential side of the business, and I jumped full scale into construction cleanup for large multifamily developers and hotel developers. And to this day, we do large construction cleanup business, and then we also do large maintenance, window cleaning, pressure washing, carpet cleaning contracts for like hotels and stuff.
Yeah.
We no longer do residential anymore. Like we completely like changed it all, and we're like a full-scale construction cleanup business now. So we completely evolved, but the reason why that evolution happened, going back to your question, why did I start this business? Well, I stopped with the whole entrepreneur thing and was like, let's get practical, right? I don't care if I create the next Uber or if I have some super creative, cool idea. I just need something practical that works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been in business for 8 years now with other businesses, could never scale it past $500,000. And I'm like, dude, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to build a business. I want to have people with me. I want to build something that's sustainable. And so by getting practical and realizing that, hey, business is just business. And if you have a good business idea, you don't need to get romantic with the entrepreneur creativity product. It's just what works. Like what works. Construction worked. Large maintenance window cleaning worked. There was more of that than there was solar panels. And so it just made sense to switch over to this sort of business model. And so, you know, that's why we evolved, and the reason why I changed into why I started SunClean was out of pure necessity of just, hey, we just need to start a business. It was available. It was something that was there. And I believe that way too many people wait too long to start their business. Like, there's people out there watching this right now that they got an idea, and they're trying to make sure it's the perfect idea. Like all the chips align, and it's super sexy, and it's cool, and it's something that they're gonna love, and like, I just don't believe that, man. I believe that if you build anything, you're gonna love it if it's good enough, if you're good enough. Like, if you're good enough as a business owner, if your business is good enough, you're gonna wake up every day and be like, damn, I created something fucking cool, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting story. Yeah, it's like more of like with people, with like going back to like the more like the opportunities you went through. Like there's so much people like with businesses that went out of business because they were too focused on one idea instead of being like, oh, like they kind of have that in the back of their mind of like, I should be doing this, but like I'm just so good at what I'm doing at this one thing, I'm just going to ignore that little side piece.
Yeah.
And then like for example with like Blockbuster and Netflix.
Oh yeah, they screwed up. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like ignoring the fact that our streaming's not going to take off, but I do have an opportunity to do it. So like, you know what? I'm good at selling DVDs at a location.
This is what we do.
This is what we do. Like 6 years later, Netflix on top, and then Blockbuster's out of business.
That's what business is all about, man. It's an evolution of the original thing.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not evolving in business, you're dying. Like, technology is going to take you out one day. A better competitor is going to take you out. Like, if you're not bettering yourself, now, that doesn't mean that you, like for me personally at least, like, that you have a ferry of ideas, right? And you just keep starting new businesses all the time. I see people do this a lot too, right? They have a great business, it's not doing good enough, and so then they say, oh, you know what, this isn't doing what I wanted it to do, so, I think this idea is where I'm going to, kill it, right? So then they take all of their attention off of the business that could have got them where they were going. They already had momentum. They knew how to do the business. And they say, but this looks cooler and it looks easier. So then they jump into that business. That will make you fail every time because you keep starting over from scratch constantly.
It's like you're never finishing the job you started. Kind of.
You're not starting what you finished.
Yeah, exactly.
But evolution is important. I think you brought up a good point. That's why we're here now. That's why we've been able to scale and grow, is by evolving, right? We always had a specialty division in our business for maintenance contracts for hotels and stuff, but construction for the last 2 years has been what's really grown our business. And here we are. We had an idea 3-4 months ago to separate our specialty division into its own division and scale that for all of our maintenance contracts. And it was the best idea ever, right? Like, we're killing it in our specialty division now. It's like a whole nother business now.
Oh yeah.
You know?
We're like going from like SoCal to NorthCal. Like,
yeah, now we're going to NorCal too. We're gonna probably open up NorCal market. Yeah. So it's gonna be great.
I'm already looking forward to Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona too. Yeah. Screw it. If we can figure out how to do it in NorCal, why not Arizona?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's all the same. You know? Once you figure out how to do it one long distance, you can do it anywhere long distance.
Definitely. So John, I gotta ask, like, what made you become like, in a way, like a leader? Like, like what started, like, what made you become like, oh, I want to be a leader, not just a follower one day?
Well, leadership is very important to me, and I think anyone that's going to be a business owner or an entrepreneur is going to have to study leadership at some point, right? Now, I get it. Not all entrepreneurs or business people are wired the same way. Like, some of them are engineers, right? Like an Elon Musk, where he's just super creative and he can build some badass products, But at the same time, he's also a leader. Like, people really look up to that guy, and he's like the guy that everybody wants to follow in the battle, right? Or a Jeff Bezos, right? Where he's a creator. He's not necessarily, like, that's just not his, like, normal cup of tea, is like to be a leader, right? But he's still a leader because he had to figure out how to be that CEO, that role model, right? And so it doesn't matter what business you're in, leadership is a primary focus that needs to become a focus. I struggled with this for a decade, on how to be a good leader for my people. And I don't care if you have natural leadership ability. I don't care if you were born with it. You are not good at leadership until you have studied it and you have used it in the workforce, right? I've always had natural leadership ability. I've always been blessed that way, but people hated me, you know? People didn't want to work for me. I would get pissed off at people and yell at them, right? And just lose my temper or boss people around, right? And that's not what I wanted. That's just how it came out all the time, you know? And it wasn't until I started studying leadership to understand that, like, hey man, these people need to know that I care about them, for one. And yeah, sometimes they do need a slap on the back, right? Or they need to get a wake up call, but not if I can't keep my composure, right?
Yeah.
And so I studied leadership. I actually read a bunch of books actually, and one of them was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. The guy knows everything about leadership, right? Helped me tremendously, right? And one of the things I'll say about reading books is watching content is a lot of people just like watch content just to watch it. I did that too for many years trying to learn. And where I started getting my breakthroughs is when I knew what I needed for my business or for myself, and then I would seek that knowledge. So if I knew I need to focus on leadership, I would find books on leadership and read those books on leadership. Or I would watch podcasts on leadership, right? I wouldn't just watch it on anything or everything or just listen to anyone or anything, right? Another thing people do is they listen to too many people, right? I would just pick 2 or 3 and really zero in on what is it that makes them a great leader.
Yeah.
Right?
But every leader is different. Like once you listen to a bunch of them, like you don't know who to listen to after that.
Exactly. And then your knowledge gets all, distorted, and you just don't know how to act anymore, right? But I wouldn't consider myself like the best leader in the world, but I would say I've learned a few things about leadership, and I believe that I've gotten myself to a place where my people will listen to me now, and they respect me and they appreciate me, and if I say something, they know it's for their best interest, and that's all I can ask for, and I'll continue to study to be a good leader. But leadership is everything, man. It's what makes you, like, if your business gets anything past a couple people, right, 5 or more, 3 or more, leadership is where the energy needs to go, because you won't be able to keep those people around. They'll just keep leaving you, and then you'll have to keep starting over from scratch, and you can't do shit if that happens.
I didn't have to ask, like, I wasn't there, but like, how were you in the beginning, like, of SunClean? Like, how were you like acting, like, as like more of a leader? Like, how was everything like?
More of a tyrant, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, more of a dictator. Like, do this, do that. It wasn't because I wanted to treat people a certain way. It was more so because I didn't know any other way, right? Like, I believed, actually, no, it wasn't even that I believed. I knew what I was doing was wrong, right? But I didn't know how to control my emotions because I was dealing with too much shit, right? Not an excuse, but when you're working in the field, you're getting the jobs, you're doing the HR, you're doing everything, you're wearing every hat, you overwhelm yourself, and you put yourself in a position of failure because you're doing too many things. When the point of leadership and scaling is to utilize other people to do things for the establishment that they're better than you at, so you can trust them and you can allow them to do their respective craft, right?
Yeah.
For instance, like you, Joven, you're coming in, you're fresh, right? I'm trusting you to run this podcast. I'm trusting you with our marketing. I'm trusting you to use your ability while I coach through you to allow you to do whatever it is you want to do. But see, if I got my hands on your department and I'm trying to control all of your stuff, well, I'm going to be frustrated because I'm not focusing on what I should be focusing on. And I got 7 other divisions that I would need to control.
Yeah.
So it's like, and another thing, that makes you do that, makes you want to take control of everything, is you're broke when you're trying to start a business, right? And so when you're broke, your tolerance for what you're dealing with is at an all-time low because you're constantly stressed. You're constantly overwhelmed because you don't have the finances to finance that department or that person. So you bring that person in and you want to control everything they're doing, which is ass backwards because it's like, if you're going to spend the money on somebody, right, why not let them do their job? But you're too worried about wasting money on that department or those people that you want to control it and you want to do it yourself to make sure that there's no fuck-ups.
Yeah, in a way, just like, what's the point of hiring them if you're just gonna just do it at work?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what was just like the wake-up point? Like, you just like one day realize like, oh man, I need to change? Or was it more of a course of like months? I'm like, oh shit. Like, I'm noticing how I'm becoming as a person. I can't be like this.
That's a great question, man. Actually, I remember vividly. There was no one time that did this, right? It was a time period, and I want to say it was in 2020, end of 2020, and I was out in the field working 12, 14 hours a day, Saturdays. And I was staying in hotels. I was working so hard that I started to realize that it wasn't sustainable, you know? And we hit a place in the business where I knew we couldn't go past it. I knew we had maxed out, and there is no way that we can physically or emotionally go past the revenue that we were at. And it was because I was not being a good leader in building my team and allowing it to grow on its own.
Yeah.
I was controlling everything. I was trying to do everything myself. I was trying to be everywhere and anywhere. And so this was back in 2020. And I just remember, because we were growing so much in 2020 and then we grew even more in 2021, that I was exhausted. And I don't burn out. You know, like, I could just go. I love business. I love working. And I remember coming home and just realizing how much I was doing, and I knew it was wrong. You know, I knew I was doing it for a temporary period to keep things together, to keep it glued. But when do you make the decision that enough's enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, when do you start actually saying, like, you know, you're out there just trying to control everything, doing all the work, trying to micromanage, right? And you know you're doing that, but it's like, when do you just snap out of it and say, dude, enough's enough. Like, you need to start trusting people, and you need to, like, take a step back. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. And so really what happened is I had a conversation with a guy that was experienced in the construction industry. He had been doing project management for over like 20 years, and I vented to him what I was dealing with, right? And that conversation turned into a recruitment situation where he decided he wanted to come into my business to help me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it was a 2-month-long recruitment process, and I brought him into the business explaining, like, he was going to be an operator, right? And he was going to take everything off my plate. You know, he was going to handle all the scheduling. He was going to make sure all the contractors were hitting their deadlines. He was going to make sure that all of the stuff I was dealing with on a day-to-day, I was free of, so I could focus on the bigger picture of the business, right? So it was a huge risk, but it's what motivated me to make the change, because he cost me a shit ton of money, right? I was paying this guy more money than my salary of what I paid myself in the business, right? I brought him in, and you know, it didn't work out in the end with him, but I will say it's what brought us to the next level, right? By bringing him in and spending all that money on him, it woke something up in me and said, okay, you're committed to this now. Like, you can't just not do this, you have to do this, right? And sometimes when you put your money where your mouth is, you are now fully committed. When you put your time and your money into something, see, a lot of people think, oh shit, if I hire this person though, or if I bring this person in, I spend all this money, it could put me out of business. They're thinking, oh, that's going to take money out of my pocket, right? To me, I saw it as an investment. I said, if I spend this much money with this guy, there's a chance my whole business can be changed around, and we can start operating the way that we should, right?
Yeah, you always got to take those risks.
You had to, and so I took that risk. I hired him on, and within 3 months, I was already out of the field like the first month. And it wasn't because he just took over. It was because I had made the decision to step out of the field. And so I started working in the office every day while he handled the day-to-day, and he wasn't even in the field either. And so when I saw that he wasn't in the field, I wasn't in the field, it was like, this is possible, right? We have to put a leadership structure into place. We have to get organized, right? And so we spent 3 to 4 months figuring out the business model with this guy. And I'll tell you right now, during that 3 to 4 months, I was like a freaking hyena in a cage, just locked in a cage. I felt trapped. I felt like every second I wanted to just jump out to the field to see what was going on, right? And there were those occasions that I would just drive straight out to the field to make sure things weren't breaking, right? There was a time that I thought it was going to be impossible to scale this sort of business, make sure the quality control was up at the jobs, trust the people to get it done. It was the hardest thing ever, was to trust the people development and to put a leadership structure into place and to be able to scale like that. But that was the moment, is when I hired that guy, I made the decision. He helped me out a ton during that time. He wasn't the right guy for the business, because we were bootstrapped, right? And for him, he's used to working for businesses that had all their shit together. Even though he knew he was coming into a business that did not have any of that stuff put together, that was the point of bringing him in, was to fix all that stuff, right? But he had made a decision 3-4 months in that it wasn't for him, that he just didn't think that he wanted to do that. I think he wanted to just go do what he's used to doing. But he did help me out, and it motivated me, it inspired me after he left to keep things the way that it was. And so that's what I did. I promoted a few people in my organization. I put a structure in place. I put a leadership team into place, and I stayed out of it. I just let them do their thing. And from there, dude, the rest was history. Like, now we can keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, look at us now.
Yeah.
Nice office and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have that foundation already.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the office is crazy because we didn't even have that. We had an office, but we didn't have an office team. We didn't have that structure. We didn't have any sort of back-end support, right? A sales team, an operations, a project manager for specialty, a project manager for the other stuff, the bookkeeping. We didn't have any of that, so it was crazy because we were running all this stuff in the field and we had no back-end support. I was the back-end support, So all within probably from 2021 of November of 2021 to November of 2022, 1 year, we were able to put that into place. We have a big office team now. We have a sales team. We have project management. We have operations put into place. We have all of our contractors out in the field that are running smoothly. Our superintendents, marketing, right? There's so many things, dude, just in the last 12 months that you wouldn't even recognize this business 12 months ago.
Things can change quick, real quick. And I can't even imagine the next few years after that.
Yeah, well, now that we have the knowledge on how to do this, I foresee the next 24 months being huge.
Oh, definitely.